Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. How's it going?
Tony, I have noticed a strange trend this year. It feels like you and I have been saying largely the same stuff about Michigan throughout the year, but it feels like we're getting a lot less pushback from Michigan fans right now on the things that we're saying. I didn't know if you had any thoughts as to why that might be.
Well, I think it's because of our, convincing nature, and that people finally come around to what we've been saying, and then partly also because there's only so much fighting back you can do when you realize that you have lost, and that's a feeling that the Michigan fans are experiencing more and more now, especially after this week, losing 21-7 at Illinois, falling to Michigan falls to 4-3 on the season, 2-2 in Big Ten play, not technically eliminated from the playoffs, but would need more help than anybody in college football is willing to give them, I'm guessing. So there you go, 21-7 at Illinois. And this was not an unexpected loss, even though Michigan was favored by about 5 throughout the week in this one, which was more of a surprise than the actual outcome. But, and we can talk about the offense, Michigan defense. But one of the more interesting things in this one is something I've been saying, you've been saying all along. If you just don't lose the game, you will beat Michigan. And this is something that Illinois listened and did not lose the game and allowed Michigan to lose the game. Minnesota couldn't do that. USC couldn't do that. Illinois, averaging 4 yards a pass in this game, wins by 2 touchdowns over Michigan. 4 yards a pass, 4.9 yards per rush, 4.7 yards per play overall, beats Michigan, never is really threatened by the Wolverines. 80 yards passing for Illinois. This is none that. Typically, that's a Michigan stat. This is an Illinois stat. Luke Altmaier, 9 of 18 for 80 yards. Didn't matter. And I think it was just an all-encompassing, we just need to move the ball forward. Don't move backwards. Don't turn it over. Let Jack Tuttle do all of that for us, because he will, and he did. And the third quarterback now starting for Michigan, Jack Tuttle, and it's news flash, Tom. He is not the answer either.
No, I think that I was a little surprised at the fact that they didn't move away from him or just try something different at some point when it became very, very, very obvious that he was not going to be the solution for them. I know they probably don't want to be playing, doing yo-yo quarterbacks in the middle of drives or whatever. You didn't you were running the ball, I guess, slightly better than you were throwing it, which is, for some real damning with faint praise. I just 20 for 32, 208 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, and really should have been 2 picks had one that got wiped off on a basically unrelated holding penalty. It was just every time Michigan had the ball, you just sort of had the feeling that, well, something bad's about to happen. Just it was like a horror movie where you've got the strings are playing in a minor key in the background. I'm like, oh man, an Illinois player is about to jump out and take the ball. And they 3 times they did. They really did a 4th time and it got called back. It just, the Tuttle thing is just not working. And it's not necessarily just him. They don't have the wide receivers to do it. And, you can do the Colston Loveland do something cool play, and that works sometimes. You can't rely on a tight end to be your leading rusher or leading receiver. He was once again their leading receiver, 7 catches, 83 yards on 10 targets. But there's no downfield passing attack whatsoever. There's not a lot of the rushing attack is kind of okay, and you'll get stuff out of Mullings every once in a while. Donovan Edwards will have 1 big play, and then that'll, he had a 19-yarder, and then the rest of his carries were 6 for 19, so 3 yards a carry. Khalil Mullings, 19 carries, 87 yards, long of 11. There just is not a lot going on there. Marlon Klein got hurt, their other tight end. I mean, there's just nothing going on there. And it just feels like you might need to just sort of Like it's a day when you're looking in the pantry and going, all right, what are we going to make for dinner? And it's like, well, we have half a bag of Skittles, like a little bit of pancake mix. We have, I don't know, like some old Chex mix. Like, okay, well, we're going to have to make a dinner out of this because we have to make dinner, but I don't like the ingredients. But you might just have to get creative at some point. Like this weekend against Michigan State, I think they probably need to run 2, maybe 3 quarterbacks out there. Davis Warren isn't the answer. Neither is Jack Tuttle. Neither is Alex Orji. But you might need to just kind of keep shuffling guys in there and try and just give the opponent something to deal with, because when it's just Jack Tuttle, that only goes so far.
Yeah, they also have a can of canned food of some sort in the pantry, but they have nothing to open it with. It's like it'd be great to have that can of food, but there's nobody that can access it. Jack Tuttle right now his passer rating for the season 110.01. Davis Warren, his passer rating for the season 110.97. The only difference is that Davis Warren has thrown 6 interceptions and Tuttle has not yet. But Jack Tuttle puts the ball on the ground a lot. There's even a fumble in this one that wasn't even called a fumble because he was able to recover it. But it's interesting. His long run of the day, which was a 13-yarder, he fumbled on. Donovan Edwards' long run of the night was the 19-yarder. He fumbled on that one. The 2 longest runs of the day for Michigan, they fumbled and lost the ball. These are all self-inflicted wounds by players who are very, very clumsy in terms of hurting themselves. And Jack Tuttle does it as much as Donovan Warren. We've seen him turn the ball over consistently, or Davis Warren rather. I think you do need to change some things at quarterback, change anything. And they're trying to move Colston Loveland around. You mentioned that he wasn't the leading rusher. He wasn't the leading rusher, but he's also lining up in the backfield now to try and get him out into the flats like they would Donovan Warren. Anything they can come up with to not have to throw the ball to their receivers. And not only do the receivers not make plays, they don't block either because they're just small little dudes. And the plays in the backfield and plays downfield, they're not springing anybody with the blocking. Hogan Hansen steps in at tight end for Marlon Klein, catches 4 passes for 50 yards. So there are 2 top tight ends in this one, 11 catches, 133 yards. And then the receivers had, 7 catches for about 62 yards and twice as many targets. And there's just nothing there. The lack of downfield passing. So this is basically a free quarter stat. The fourth quarter, they threw the ball a bunch to try and catch up to that 14-point deficit, that insurmountable 14-point deficit. But through the first 3 quarters, Jack Tuttle was 1 of 4 on passes more than 5 yards downfield. And that's not good. And they opened the game by throwing deep. That's great. I commend them for that. But it was just like, well, let's try to back them off. And you see what happened. And there was never any concern from the Illinois secondary. No safety concern about being beaten deep and downfield. You saw they were even talking about it on the broadcast, how the safeties were so far up. No concern of a deep shot. And then they got after Jack Tuttle constantly. He was sacked 5 times. He was pressured twice that much. And he was running all over the place, trying to get rid of the ball. Really good job by the Illinois defense to take advantage of all of Michigan's disadvantages and really put together a blueprint for anybody else that would like to watch.
Yeah, and I don't know that this was a new blueprint necessarily to stop Michigan. This was just kind of executing the game plan that we've been talking about all season, because the thing with the Michigan offense is the issues have not changed. It's not like, that they lost their, it wasn't like Oklahoma where you lost your top 5 wide receivers to injury and now all of a sudden you don't have wide receivers. It's like, no, the issues have been the same since summer camp. We've been looking at this wide receiver unit and going, where is the productivity going to come from? And looking at the quarterback room and going, is it the former walk-on or the guy who's completed 1 pass in his career, or the guy who's played for 6 years and never been able to win a starting job? Which one of those guys is the guy who's going to be the All-American this year? Which of the 5 different places you're replacing an offensive line starter. Was that not a concern at all? Like these issues have been very, very obvious since the summer, since the spring even. And it's all just kind of gotten hand waved like, oh yeah, well, no, Alex Orji will be fine. It's fine. I mean, you pulled up the list of, the Michigan beat writers predictions for the season, and everyone said Alex Orji is going to be the starter. And then Alex Orji wasn't the starter. And there wasn't an immediate like, that's weird. I bet that's probably good news that Alex Orji is not the starter then. It's like, no, it turned out to not be. And then you saw Alex Orji and it's like, nope, that also was not good news. And now Jack Tuttle's in. It's like, nope, that's also not good news. And there are not solutions for any of these problems, it seems like, on the team right now. And you're just going to have to just sort of duct tape and baling wire it. I wonder if there's you remember the year that Lynn Bowden, Kentucky didn't have a quarterback and they just kind of went, well, Lynn Bowden, run around and do some stuff. And it kind of worked for a while and he did some cool stuff. I don't know that there's a dynamic enough playmaker on the Michigan team to do something like that, but it feels like that's the kind of thing you've got to be looking at now. Like, you've got to be getting a little creative because the standard issue solutions are not solutions at all right now. I watched this game sort of basically screening it with Alabama and Tennessee. First at an ice rink where my son had a hockey practice, and they had the Alabama-Tennessee game on the screen, and I had the Michigan game on my laptop, and I was kind of watching both of those. And then we went to a sports bar after that to watch the rest of it. And what struck me was the Alabama-Tennessee game was 7-0 in the middle of the third quarter. And it just watching those two games together, you were constantly thinking, oh, someone is right on the brink of scoring in this Alabama-Tennessee game. And Michigan-Illinois got up they were up 13-0 and they were up 21-7. And it was just, you never felt like there was even a chance that Michigan was going to score. They were up by 2 scores, and it was like it might as well have been the Indiana-Nebraska game. Like there was just no chance Michigan was coming back. That's a problem because you have to play just about perfectly on defense because it's not like Illinois is this incredibly dynamic team. But if you can score 20 points against Michigan, you're in pretty good shape if you don't turn the ball over and hand them short fields. You go back to the previous shows where we talked about, hey, you're not going to be able to get a Will Johnson pick six every week to pull your bacon out of the fire. They didn't get a Will Johnson pick six this week because Will Johnson got banged up again. And Will Johnson's interest in playing in the back half of the season, as well as some other people, that's probably something else we should talk about because you may have some guys making some business decisions at some point. Because if you're getting banged up and this is a team that's going nowhere fast, you wonder if, I could, I'm a game time decision. I can't go this week. You may get into some of those situations at some point soon. And when you've got a stars and scrubs roster, if your stars are making business decisions, that could go even worse pretty quickly.
Yeah. And it's something we've been pointing to and kind of waiting on. And we will see if that happens. They fought through adversity over the first quarter of the season, and now they're really, really dealing with it. And then now you're losing, which changes the math in all of those areas. Early in the season, when they would get their long touchdown run and be like, okay, they're safe now. If they don't get that, they cannot almost cannot punch the ball into the end zone. They're one of 3 on red zone chances, scoring 1 touchdown and missing getting a field goal blocked and going empty in a third trip. And this is a situation. So Michigan had 3 drives of 60 plus yards in this game. They scored 7 points on those drives. Illinois, meanwhile, thanks to some short fields, had 4 scoring drives of under 60 yards. And that led to all 21 of their points. Again, just let Michigan give you the game. Don't give them the game, and you'll go home happy. Defensively, Tom, for the Wolverines, this was an Illinois offense that ran the ball on them very, very effectively, over 200 yards rushing. Then you take out a couple of sacks or whatever, and gets down to about 187, 4.9 yards per rush against this Michigan defense. When there is no threat of a pass, but the passing game was very ineffective, 80 yards. Illinois didn't want to. I've seen Luke Altmaier throw 4 interceptions in the game last year. Brett Bielema didn't want to see that in this one. Let's just keep the ball on the ground. Ran it 38 times, threw it 18 times, used those short fields. They only needed 3 field goals to win this one. And, they only took, only used 2 of them. They used 2 of them. But this was a disturbing Michigan defensive effort in terms of the running game that I think is kind of surprising. And we'll see if anybody else can do the same thing. But getting run on like this, including the 36-yarder on a fake punt, fantastic call by Illinois at that point. But even so, Illinois rushed 22 times for 116 yards in the first half, and then only if you take away that fake punt, it was 15 for 35. So Illinois shut everything down in the second half, and they're just like, what, let's just ride this and just enjoy the parade to victory.
Yeah, they got very predictable because it was they very much did the just don't give it away game plan in the second half. Because Luke Altmaier, 9 for 18, 80 yards, completing 50% of your passes when you're not bombing it downfield a lot and you're not, throwing a lot of, high risk kind of passes. They're not a very good offense, especially through the air. And you don't need to be, because they had the 36-yarder on the fake punt. They had 129-yarder, but it's just, you go through the list and you take out the 29-yarder and the 36-yarder, and the rest of the day, Adrian Lowry was, 8 for 23, so basically 3 yards a carry. Josh McCray, 17 for 50, that's 2.9 yards per carry. Luke Altmaier, 10 for 48, 4.8 yards per carry. There was nothing dynamic. There was nothing explosive. It was just kind of grind it out, be predictable, just keep moving down the field. And you look at even some of the drives where Michigan got stops. They forced a field goal on the first drive, but it was because Altmaier missed a wide open receiver on 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, whatever that was. It was not, what a great stop. It was, he just missed an open receiver. The next time when they went for it on 4th down, that one was, okay, Michigan got that. I guess that was 2 drives later. They had driven down to the Michigan 22 and got stopped on downs because the Michigan defensive line kind of bowed up and stopped them. But they got to, they had one drive where they got stopped. Otherwise, their first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drives all got into Michigan territory. Michigan 29, Michigan 22, Michigan 14, got a touchdown. Michigan 26, got another touchdown. That's a problem. If your defense can't get off the field and, your offense can't score, you end up with a lot of, they were only 10 drives in this game. That's not a lot of drives. And when your offense is not able to score consistently and not able to score explosively, that really narrows your window to get more than 20 points. And without being able to score on big plays, without those big running plays that you just talked about, without the big defensive scores that we talked about, we haven't seen those turnover shades in a while. Without that, there's just not a lot they can do. And we keep looking at the schedule and going, boy, I don't know how many wins I see here. You still think they probably beat Northwestern. Michigan State this weekend, that's a little dicey. We haven't even talked about the special teams, really. I mean, the special teams had a debacle of a game. It's not often you block a field goal and still have a crappy day on special teams, but Michigan managed to pull that off.
Yeah. Real quick, Tommy Doman, bad day punting, short punts, didn't, had opportunities to pin Illinois. And if you pin Illinois, then you got a pretty good chance to beat them. He wasn't able to do that. He also dropped the snap on a field goal that led to it being blocked. So not a good day at all for him. And he's not had a good season this year in any way. But, 3 punts, averaged 32.7 yards per punt, long of 36, none inside the 20. Like that's unacceptable. And Michigan has had very good punting over the years. And that's not winning football in any way. So now how does this then apply to what they've got coming up against Michigan State? Because
before we move on real quick, I do want to touch on one thing, which was the decision, the field goal that got blocked. the Michigan field goal, the Dominic Zavada field goal, they got blocked. I think that was 4th and 10 at the 10-yard line. And I'm just going to pull up the drive chart real quick. That ended up on the Illinois 10-yard line. So 4th and goal at the Illinois 10-yard line with 27 seconds to go in the third quarter. You're down 21-7. So you functionally have 1 quarter left. What good does a field goal do you there? I mean, I know you're probably not feeling great about your odds to score from the 10-yard line, but if you don't make it, you go for it, you don't make it, then you're pinning them deep. So, they just have to start from their own 10, and you're probably getting halfway decent field position. If you kick the field goal and you make it, then it's 21-10. Congratulations, you've gone from a 2-score deficit to a 2-score deficit, entering the fourth quarter with an offense that has shown no ability to make any kind of big plays. You're down there. Why would you not take a crack at the end zone? Throw the ball in the end zone. What is the worst thing that happens? You end up giving them the ball at the 10. What's the best thing that happens? You turn a 2-score deficit into a 1-score deficit. That seemed like a bizarre decision. We've been pretty complimentary of Sharon Moore's 4th down decision making this year, and the fact that he's been aggressive and he's really sort of steered into the fact that they know what they've got to do, and they've been aggressive, and they've gone for it on 4th and 1 in their own territory and all that kind of stuff. That was a terrible decision. I thought that was an absolutely bizarre decision, given what your offense is. You score a touchdown there, and boy, that completely changes the complexion of the game. You don't score a touchdown there, well, you're still in the same basic position you are if you make a field goal. And they didn't make the field goal, but the fact that they didn't make the field goal is not why that was a bad decision. That was a bad process decision in addition to a bad result decision.
Yeah, and to that point, they'd only completed 1 pass of that length, at least in terms of distance in the air. So they have no confidence in any of their quarterbacks to make that throw. But I'm with you. You still need 2 scores and most likely 2 touchdowns. And then if you can get a score there, if you can get a touchdown there, that changes everything Illinois has to do in terms of that. Now it only takes 1 bad play to tie things back up. It only takes that random pick 6 or, a fumble return or something that Michigan has been able to produce this season. And again, Illinois is not, they can make mistakes, and they've done it. They just didn't do it nearly as much as they have over the course of the last few years in this game. So yeah, I'm with you. The need for points, it's almost a cosmetic thing. I don't know that, let's 21-10 looks better right now than 21-7. And then we'll see what happens in the fourth quarter. I don't think it was a winning play. It was just let's just get some points and try to regroup over this next 3.5 minute break of television timeouts. But yeah, didn't do them any good, and they weren't going to get down that far any other time. And so if you are knowing how difficult it is to get down there, use every single play you've got. And that's one where it's not ball don't lie, but whatever it is, it applies there, because it wasn't a winning play, and it certainly didn't lead to them getting any closer to winning this game. So now how all of this applies to Michigan State, and we're talking about a team in Michigan that if you're playing them and you just don't make mistakes, you can win. You allow Michigan to make mistakes. We saw Jack Tuttle, the interception in the fourth quarter, down at the 12-yard line, never saw the defender. The interception earlier in the game that was wiped away because of a defensive holding. It was a 2-man route, and Tuttle picked the man that had two defenders with him instead of going with the guy who only had 1 defender. Like, that alone is a 2-man route, and you never see even the second defender. And it was one of the worst throws you're going to see this year. And then of course there's always a fumble possibility as Jack Tuttle is running for his life and getting blindsided, whether he's gaining yards or just getting hit in the backfield. The fumble possibilities are always going to be there. But Michigan State, if I say Michigan State, if you can only avoid making mistakes and dumb plays, you can win this game. Is that a lot like saying, Tom, if you can just jump in the air and touch the sun with your fingertip, you'll never be cold again.
Are you familiar with the story of the scorpion and the frog, Tony?
Yes.
And the punchline of this story, well, not punchline, but the denouement of that story being, the scorpion stings the frog as he's trying to swim him across the river, and they both drown. And the frog, as he's dying, says, "But why?" And the scorpion says, because it is my nature. Sparty No, Tony, is a meme that has spanned generations, and it is because Michigan State does three things. Two of them are bad. One of them is beat highly ranked Ohio State teams. The other two are come up with extremely creative and funny ways to lose games in hilarious moments. Now, every once in a while, Michigan will out Sparty No Sparty. You may have heard the phrase trouble with the snap in the past, for example. I saw the line for this. It's down again. It opened at what? What'd you say, 24 it opened this season, like over the summer? Michigan opened as a 24-point favorite. If you jumped on Spartans plus 24 this summer, you've gotten 17 points of line value right now because it's down to 7. It was 9.5 last week. It's down to 7. And that still feels a little high just because, they just got a pretty good win over Iowa. And I don't think Iowa's a terrible football team. And Iowa, I don't know that Iowa's offense is any less functional than Michigan's at this point, which is an entire mood of a sentence right there. I think Michigan has more talent and should be able to win. But I mean, it really comes down to, you tell me how many times Michigan State turns the ball over. And if that answer is 0, I'm probably hammering Michigan State plus 7. I don't know if I trust Michigan State to do it, but it does feel like they have gotten better as the season has gone along. And I don't think you can say that about Michigan. And Will Johnson missed time last week or on Saturday because he was banged up. I think he played a little bit and then left the game. They're still pretty banged up. How confident are you that Will Johnson's playing this Saturday? Maybe. The rest of the secondaries kind of has its moments where it's okay and has its moments where it's not. They really haven't been tested that much other than a little bit by USC, but USC, I think we've sort of seen what USC is now. I think Michigan wins this, Tony. I think they win this game, and I think they probably get to 6 wins to get bowl eligible this year, but boy, they'd better win this weekend. You had better win this weekend, because if you don't, oh boy, I think it could go from bad to worse to even worse than that.
Aiden Childs, Michigan State quarterback, his first 3 games this year against FBS opponents threw 7 interceptions. He's thrown 2 in his last 3 games, and those games include Ohio State, where he threw 1, Oregon, where he threw none, and Iowa, where he threw 1. So these last 3 defenses have prepared him for a good defense in Michigan. But I think the secondaries that he's seen have probably been better than what he's going to see on Saturday. But it's still a matter of how many turnovers is that guy going to have? And if it's 0, that to me is a Michigan State win. The number of ways that Michigan can win this game or any game starts with Michigan not turning the ball over and forcing turnovers. And if both of those things are not on their side, they don't have a path towards a victory. They don't have the offensive skill to get it done. Unless Kalal Mullings has 3 40-yard runs and Donovan Edwards has 2, there's no way for them to move the ball. It's can't just be Colston Loveland and Hogan Hansen and Marlon Klein. It can't just be tight ends. And so Michigan State has the receivers to hurt these corners and the secondary. And Makari Page was a little banged up in this one as well. But I'm with you. I'm not ready. This is going to be a night game. The crowd. John, how is the crowd going to be if things aren't going well in the first quarter?
Boy, it feels like it might be not great. I think this is going to be, I'm just looking up Michigan State in terms of number of 20-yard rushes allowed. Michigan State is tied with Michigan, 16th in the nation, 5 rushes of 20 yards allowed. So this is probably not, they've given up a couple longer ones than that, but this is not a team that you're probably going to just gash on the ground. I mean, the Michigan fan base is getting a little surly right now, and this, if you're losing and Michigan, if Michigan State gets off to a decent start, and they're up by, if Michigan State gets up to even a 10-point lead, that is like, if Michigan State has a 10-point lead in the ball, the game is over. Functionally, the game is over unless Michigan State immediately turns it over or something like that. Michigan has to get off to a good start in this game. And this is the game where you always see Michigan people complaining that this is Michigan State Super Bowl and they save everything up for this game. If Michigan State goes down the field and scores on that opening drive and they're up 7-0, that it might get a little surly in the big house. And we have seen that in the past. And, if you have a game where the crowd kind of turns on the team, that's one where that can really work against you. And you're going to have Michigan State people there. And that's a real bitter rivalry. I lived up in Michigan for a few years, and that's one of those things where, Ohio State Michigan fans obviously do not get along. Michigan and Michigan State fans, they live side by side all year long. And it is that is one that Michigan fans do not like losing, because that's one that you have to live with 365 days. You have to live with an Ohio State loss 365 days, but you live with Michigan State people 365 days a year, and you are going to hear about it if you lose. And I think everyone has sort of read the room now and recognized that a loss to Michigan State probably does not only mean you're not going to, you're not beating Michigan State, but you're also not going probably to a bowl game, which means you're probably also at some point going to start losing some of those better players. And then this becomes a really, really lost season. I did, Tony, just see a really interesting stat this week. The last defending national champion to finish with a losing record was which team in which year?
Boy, that's a good one.
It is a school that we have talked about on this show.
Okay. Would it be like 1990 91 Georgia Tech after their half national championship in 1990?
The 1967 Michigan State Spartans.
Oh, interesting.
It has been a minute, and this is not how Michigan folks, we tried to tell you, and I will raise my hand and say we were also wrong, because we said like 8-4 was a possibility. 8-4. I think Michigan fans right now, the ones who were calling us morons for saying 8-4 2 months ago, would now take 8-4 with an enormous smile on their faces. I don't think 8-4 is walking through that door. So now, this is low key one of the bigger games in Michigan football over the last few years. Because boy, if this goes bad, this could go real, real bad.
Yeah, it's one of those culture games. This is going to be a culture win or just a tough loss, bad loss. And you look at their schedule, Michigan State, and then Oregon comes to town. Then they go to Indiana. Hopefully Indiana by that point has Curtis Rourke back, their quarterback, who will miss this week's game against Washington. Then they can rest and relax because they've got Northwestern before the Ohio State game, Northwestern at home. But yes, Michigan's going to be favored in that Northwestern game and should win it. But they're not in a position where they can just, we've got this one. They still have to execute, and they've not been able to do that consistently. One last thing that I'll throw out there, Tom, for you as a stat. Michigan came into this game, they had allowed 10 rushes of 10 yards or more through the first 6 games. They allowed 6 against Illinois in just one afternoon. So not a good trend for the Michigan defense. Anything else before we go?
I'm not able to pull up fast enough the Michigan Northwestern game tickets. Let's see. Let's just see what Tony.
So,
why don't you give me a guess as to what the get-in price for that game is right at this moment? 2 tickets to the Michigan Northwestern game. Senior Day, Tony, obviously going to be an emotional day in Ann Arbor. What is the get-in price for 2 tickets for that game?
I don't want to say people have given up already and go really lowball it and look bad. So I will say, Tom, $37.
Well, Tony, in the Price is Right rules, you would be hearing the fail horn right now.
Mm-hmm.
It is $27, or to express it in the number of bottles of Diet Coke, which has been used in currency in such circumstances in the past. Up there, I'm going to say about well, let's see, campus cooler prices. You're probably looking at about 13 bottles of Diet Coke. But hey, listen, it's still a month out. Prices could end up dropping. And it's not great, and it looks like it might not get appreciably better.
Just so you know, I had factored in the handling fees and the processing fees and the convenience fees.
Oh, well, in that case, allow me to check.
$14 short.
You might. Let's see if I have filtered it with. No, I don't believe I have.
Mm-hmm.
Let's adjust. We got to get this correct. 1,000 tickets available right now on there.
I only need 2.
$44 with fees, Tony. Boy, the fees, they do get you with the fees.
Yeah, it's better just to scalp, and the fees are much less, like $10 less. Shipping and handling as the tickets are being scanned over to your phone or whatever. So that will do it. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Find us at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, and you can subscribe to that channel now. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up on this one if you're watching it. Of course, you can find us at all of your podcast platforms of choice. Just search Buckeye Weekly. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and review. That will always be appreciated. And of course, BuckeyeHuddle.com. Join up, become a premium member, say hello to us there on the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.